Hello, fire goddesses. Welcome to episode 66. In today's episode, I have Saskia Bergmans-Smith back on the episode. I believe this is now our third or our fourth conversation together, and I'm just so grateful for Saskia because we just really have good synergy, and whatever conversation we end up having, I feel always ends up, at least in my interpretation, it feels really impactful and like it's really going to shed some light for a lot of the goddesses listening. And today we talk about what we're calling radical truth. And as you're probably going to discover, so many people right now are saying, I want to hear the truth. I want to know the truth. What is the truth? What does the truth mean? And what Saskia and I really wanted to drive home as a result of doing this episode is that the truth resides in each and every one of us. And how specifically does that play out? How do we see that? How do we begin to recognize the patterns, and how do we learn to see those parts of ourselves? And I really believe that you're going to enjoy this episode. I don't even know in this intro if I'm doing this episode justice. I don't even know what I'm going to really honestly title it at this point, because I feel like it's a really great episode and I want as many people as possible to listen to it. So I'm going to have to ponder that for a little bit. But you're here. That's all that matters. I highly encourage you to listen to this from beginning to end, because I really think this is probably one of the more impactful episodes that we've done. So, fire goddesses, stay tuned. Hello, fire goddesses. Welcome to the Reclaim Your Fire podcast. My name is Angela Noel, and I am a prosperity coach for the newly awakened or awake curious, driven overachiever, and overdoer. After running a successful acupuncture practice in Boston for 12 years, I decided to hang my hat by closing the practice and pursue what it is that I'm really meant to do in this world, and that is to serve humanity online on a global scale. Using my background in Chinese medicine, along with the brain science of habits, spirituality, and divine masculine and feminine energy balance, I am here to help you not just understand, but know how powerful you are, and that you are the person who is responsible for having the finances, inner peace, radiant health, and energy, aka the fire, in your life that you've always desired. My intention with this podcast is to serve humanity, no matter what gender you identify as, to help bring out the divine feminine goddess in each and every one of you. As you probably are already aware, the world is changing and is begging for the goddess to come out in each and every one of you. So, fire goddesses, stay tuned. Hello, fire goddesses. Welcome to another episode. I am bringing back my veteran guest, Saskia Bergmans-Smith, today, and we are going to be talking about kind of a continuum of what we've been talking about in the last 3 episodes together, but specifically, we're going to be talking about radical truth. And for those of you wondering more about it, well, first of all, Saskia, welcome.
Thank you,
Welcome
Angela.
back.
So great to be with you guys.
It's really great to have you back, as always. So, Saskia, I would love it if maybe you could just, I'm going to hand it over to you, if you don't mind, about radical truth, and then we'll just dive right in.
All right. So Angela and I were discussing about how the journey of truth is poignant now more than ever in what it looks like. And I may have shared earlier, but my practice recently, for the last 6 months or so, has been show me the truth. show me my truth. And sometimes it's when I hear some news or I hear some information in my orbit, and I'm like, oh, I don't know how that lands with me. Show me the truth. But first and foremost, it's directed inwards to me. And every time I catch myself placing judgment, having judgy thoughts, having fearful thoughts, internally or externally, I recognize it now more than ever. And I say, all right, where's the truth? Where does it lie in me? And when I find myself pointing my finger outwards, I turn it back in on myself to say, what's here for me to see? I want to see the truth.
Yeah, I really I appreciate that, Saskia, talking about because the truth lies within each and every one of us, but what specifically does that mean? And I'm going to be perfectly transparent. When Saskia and I were talking about doing this today, I was thinking, well, what does that mean specifically? And if I'm not totally clear, then I'm guessing that there's listeners and goddesses out there that are not really clear what that means. So we had a little chat, and we are on board to do this because we realized that this is so very important when it comes to living a life of authenticity, of living the life that we want, of empowerment, of really reclaiming our personal power. This is it. And I feel like we could really expand into different areas about using our voice. Because so many goddesses, so many women struggle in that department, don't they? And as
Indeed.
somebody that has struggled with that. So, yeah, and the whole judgment, the whole judgment part. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah, because every time I turn it inwards and I ask myself, why is this here? What do I need to learn? I gain more compassion
Yeah.
because I know how hard it is to be in integrity with myself and say, wait a minute, Missy, that wasn't nice. Where on earth is this coming from? And then
Mhm.
I have to draw inwards. And sometimes it's just throughout the day, and I'm just pausing for a minute and say, illuminate my mind so I can see the truth here. Divine Spirit, whomever you talk to,
Yes.
but taking a moment to pause and ask. We don't have to stop our lives and sit in meditation,
No.
busy lives, but it's a moment of recognition of, whoa, I got a storyline here, and where's the truth in this?
Yes.
Because this is clouding my judgment
Yeah.
and it's scrambling my circuits, and I was just megally triggered and I wasn't nice. And no one might have been any the wiser, but I knew it.
Yeah.
And it may have, caused karma by having a cause and effect with others, but not always. And it really is, Angela, what I've been hearing more and more is that our thoughts now more than ever hold a powerful frequency.
Goodness. Yes.
So, right now more than ever, that refining of our consciousness
Yes.
is powerful.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I love what you just said, everything that you just said. And it really what's becoming more clear to me as we're talking, because talking is movement and movement, right? And
Yeah.
that's really when, for us, I feel like that's why we have such good synergy is that when once we start talking, then the creativity flows. So radical, I think what I'm hearing you say is the reason why it's called radical truth
Yeah.
is because it's the kind of truth that many people might consider uncomfortable and hence radical.
And a
Because
bit self-indulgent.
and yes, self-indulgence, selfish, like who am I? Who do I think I am to sit with myself every day and question why I feel this way when other people in my life need my help. And that's really when that's when the quote unquote downfalls, right? When we can easily go into the rabbit hole of our ego. And
Right,
yeah, yeah,
right, right. Because it's that expression, me, myself, and I. We need to be checking in, and I so encourage you to have this be a more consistent practice if it isn't already.
yeah,
If this has sparked a seed of curiosity in you. And as Angela was speaking, what the image that came to me too was, if this conversation resonates with you, share it with a friend and say, I want us to have a conversation like Saskia and Angela just did, and expanding on what we just touched on, so that you get to vocalize and speak with a trusted, beloved friend or mentor or whomever, sibling, so that you can unpack it and you can sit with somebody else and say, this is my truth, and this is where I'm having trouble with seeing my truth. Because
yeah,
it's nice to hear we're not alone. And
yeah,
just as Andrew and I bounced off each other and expanded our verbiage and our conception of it, so too will you.
yeah,
And this is what empowers us more, because we begin to empower our own voice and dare to speak it. Because sometimes we don't feel safe enough to speak it.
right. And safety and fear are really what come to play when we don't want to speak our truth.
Yeah.
But the fact is, if we continue, and I say we just colloquially, if we continue to not speak our truth, then we will never be free. And I'm just thinking of that quote right now: "The truth will set you free," and that goes
Yes.
down. It's not, I feel like as kids growing up, the truth meant what our parents taught us, like always tell the truth, don't lie, or I think there's even something in the Bible, if you grew up reading the Bible, to tell the
Mm.
truth and don't be dishonest. But consider, there's people out there that are like, I'm always honest. So I'm speaking to you right now, those of you who are saying, just like we talked about responsibility the last time, personal responsibility, who are thinking, I'm always honest, I don't lie, I'm not a liar. Okay, and you're starting to get righteous about it. I invite you to really go within and say, am I always being honest with myself? And there's
Yeah.
so much that has come to the surface in this last year or so about self-deception.
Yeah.
As
Because that's the ego's protection mechanism. That's the human condition.
yes,
And that's normal. It's the layer of forgiveness, humility, to be able to say, all right, I know you're there. Let's just be a little more grounded in my physical body so that I can be more steady and stable in order to see this incredibly uncomfortable truth. And it might not be a big doozy, it might be something small,
yeah,
but its ripple effect can
mm,
be huge. And sometimes it's just the little ones that have this enormous ripple effect.
yeah. And it comes down to, oftentimes, trauma with a small t, trauma with a capital T, really, really resolving our traumas, even our small t traumas,
Yeah,
that, it could be something that somebody said to us when we were 5 years old, and we're still carrying that trauma in our DNA, in our cells. And I also would just like to really quickly circle back
yeah,
to judgment, because I feel like we talked about it, but I feel like we should expand upon that if we can, because we're judging, we're human beings, and we're judging all the time, all day long. Everybody's judging, even if it's a positive judgment. And so many people are afraid of other people judging. So it goes two ways, really. So first of all, there's judgment. There's us judging other people, right? And what you said earlier, is so, so important, that when we judge other people, it's really an opportunity to ask, well, what is it about me?
Right.
Because all judgment is right, like you said, it's the ego. The ego wants to keep us safe. The ego prevents us from all the emotions that we don't, that make us uncomfortable and keep us kind of above, above the water, so to speak. Right.
Yeah.
And then when we when we're finding ourselves in judgment, that's really, that's an opportunity to heal, because really when you're judging somebody else, you're looking at that person and you're not liking something about something that's in that person that's actually in you. The
Yeah.
mirror, we're each other's mirrors, that's all we are.
Right. And once you actually experience that and witness where and how it lives in you, then you'll be able to roll with it more frequently. Because in the beginning, when you hear it, it's like, yeah, I've heard this before. Everyone's a mirror. But it's then taking it to that next layer
Yes.
that really allows that light bulb moment to go off. And then you begin to feel empowered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, you know, it really is daring to go there and being reminded next time you have that thought, you hear Angela's voice again saying, it's just a reflection, it's just a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then taking that moment to draw it inwards and say, well, oh, God, that's uncomfortable.
You're like, darn
And
it.
then asking for that insight.
It's me, not you.
And sometimes like, no, I want to stay angry. I'm not going to take, not mine.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
when that trigger is unhooked and you're more taken away from it, it's further away from you, then contemplate that idea as to why. And sometimes it's even when I put my head on the pillow at the end of the day that I'm like, sometimes I recap the day then.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, sometimes when I have been triggered and I'm like, whoa, that wasn't very skillful, and I really am sitting in my truth of my behavior, sometimes I practice rewriting it of how I would have liked it to have gone, which allows me to be in a state of forgiveness towards myself. But it also starts to rewrite another response in my consciousness. So I begin to start to unhook that trauma or that trigger that it's brought up in me, to say, no, I don't want this to be my truth anymore. I don't want to be a victim anymore. I want to shift it. I want to change it.
Yes. And I love how you said use the word victim, because so many times people think victim, is an unfortunate place to be. And it's something that just happens to us. And again, that's going back to our radical truth and being responsible, having personal responsibility. Because when we are in that phase of feeling sorry for ourselves, and everybody has been there,
Yeah.
everybody
And
has
we
been
will
there.
again.
It's not a matter of pardon?
And we will again.
And we will again. It's going to happen over and over and over and over again. But when you are in a state of feeling sorry for yourself, what you're actually doing is you're in victim mentality, you're in victim mode. And going back to personal power, going back to claiming our authority and being the person who is in charge of our lives. When you go into victim mode, poor me, this person did this to me, you're basically you're giving that power away to somebody else instead of keeping it for yourself. And this is such an important conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could go here, I could go there, I could go
Right.
there. Like,
Right.
there's so many different directions, but
Yeah. And it does, have you noticed, Angela, it gets more short-lived. I
Yeah.
don't sit in the victimhood as long as I used to.
Yeah.
I can snap out of it. Even it really struck me. It was a couple of weeks back, and I was in the car, and I was like, God, this is so uncomfortable. I don't like this. And then I just got this inspiration of, honey, this is an opportunity to grow. And it switched everything upside down on its head. And I was like, cool, I can turn this into something light and fun, or at least something neutral and not heavy.
Yes.
And that was the shift in energetic frequency.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love what Angela said earlier of the truth will set you free. The other thing about frequency right now is that every time we empower ourselves and we shift our frequency, we are doing it for everybody else on this planet.
Exactly.
And we are supporting each other in that shift in frequency. It is that powerful right now.
It is so powerful. And this is really like, when we talk about the state of the world, and I know we've talked about this in other conversations, Saskia, especially our first one, where the planet is shifting and people are having all their opinions and their emotions about it. And the human experience, part of the human experience that we've known until now, is to have a temper tantrum. And there's so many temper tantrums going on right now. So many. But when we do this work that we're talking about today, leaning into our radical truth, looking at ourselves as mirrors of each other and learning the lessons, and we shift and we grow and we change. If you really want to make a difference in this world, no pressure or anything. Think about it some more and consider it for yourself. But this is how you change the world. And yes, to causes, I'm totally like, if there's a cause that you really believe in, absolutely go for that cause, volunteer, do those things in the world that make you feel good and give back, because the world, it's so much of the life that we that so much of the life that we want is behind reciprocity, really just the cycle of giving and receiving. But for those of you that are resisting doing this work for whatever reason, that might be something to consider. Is when you change, we all change. You know, I've been doing this for I've been at this for a while, longer than I realized. When I read my journals from the 90s, I'm like, oh, I was kind of there in the 90s too, but it feels more like a recent awakening. But what's been really, really cool is to witness, and I'm not going to drop any names, is to witness people that I love changing.
Yeah. Because you're holding the space for love.
Yeah. They're changing. And it's not because I said, and I used to be really kind of bossy about it. It has nothing. It's basically them seeing us as light. And they're like, oh, I want what Saskia, I want what she has. Give that to me.
Yeah. How do you do that? Showing up for yourself, looking in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every day. Even if it's hard. We can do hard things, like Glennon Doyle says.
And honoring that, I love this. One of my predominant yoga teacher, I smoked for many, many years. And she was like, you need to exhaust. I beat myself up for many, many years about it too. And she was like, it's okay. You need to exhaust the tendency. And once you've exhausted it, it will be done. And you'll be able to close the door. And that was how it transformed. I needed to exhaust that love-hate relationship that I had with it. I needed to close out that karma. So it is a dance of honoring that we are constantly in our process of refining becoming more courageous, becoming more brave, becoming more truthful to ourselves, and to be loving and gentle to ourselves in that journey too. And knowing, as Angela said, that if it's like, I don't care if it's helping other people, it's like, you know what, then go the other side and say, other people are doing this too. Their energy is supporting me. So whichever moment, whichever energy is what you need to lean on or to help perk you up. There are many times when it's been, no, I need to buck up because I'm here to help people. And if I'm not doing my job, then I'm not helping people. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I need to lean on that to get inside. I need to go external to get internal. And sometimes I need to go internal to get external. So, it's this constant swing of the pendulum. And each of you will know and expand upon and cultivate what is needed. But keep coming back to compassion. Keep coming back to being loving to yourself, and speak to, journal to yourself, your higher self, call to your higher self. Like I said about putting my head on the pillow at night, often I put my head down and say, I say God, but speak to whomever you resonate with. It might be your granny, it might be your mother, it might be your great aunt who's passed over. Help me to heal and help me to find my truth, even as I sleep.
Mm.
Know
Saskia,
that can
so
happen in the consciousness, in the subconscious too. We don't have to be doing it all in our minds.
no,
So much can happen in the subconscious in our sleep state.
so much. I have one of my mentors, a shaman, says that we're more awake when we're asleep than when we are on this 3D plane.
Yes.
Meaning our waking state during the day. We're more awake when we're asleep. And if that could be something we could even explore later on, is asking for guidance in dream time. That is a practice that I've been doing now for over 2 years now. And
Mm.
it's very, very powerful. It's a powerful way to really um, request information from. I ask my subconscious for my answers,
Yes.
but you could also ask like whoever your guides are. But yeah, dream time is so, so powerful, and setting those intentions. And like you said, it doesn't need to be difficult. And the reason why it seems difficult, if you're listening, goddesses, is because it's a belief, and that's all it is. And it really, that's an example of self-deception and not being truthful to ourselves. And
Yeah.
another thing I want to mention, to your point about just having that self-compassion, I want to ask people out there who struggle with loving themselves, because so many people feel funny. I highly recommend the book, by the way, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. I'll put it in the show notes. Really,
Okay.
really great book, really easy, fast read. But for those of you that, feel funny, or you feel like it's self-indulgent, going back there, if you're finding that loving yourself and being compassionate with yourself doesn't feel right, or it feels weird, you know, let me ask you, consider somebody that you really love. Maybe it's your young child, maybe it's, your aunt or your grandmother, or a child. I often like to use that as an example. Would you say the same things that you say to your children, or to somebody you love, to your mother, whomever that is, that you say to yourself? And also, for those of you that are parents, your children are watching. They're watching that self-deprecation. They're watching you hate yourself. So if you're resisting stepping into self-love and self-compassion, consider that for one moment, because children hear and see everything, don't they, Saskia?
They do. and they feel the energy
And they know the energy. Yeah.
more so than us. A
Yeah.
lot of the time we've shut it down because we've just lived a longer life. But it amazes me just how much they pick up.
Yeah, they really do. They're so
And,
wise.
and they can't always put words to it. So if they're picking up negativity or, you know, us being harmful to ourselves, they will take it on themselves without even knowing it.
They will. And it could show up, it lays in this, it hangs out in the subconscious and will show up in a weird way later on, most likely.
Mm.
So not to put the guilt and the shame on the parents, that's not the
No,
intention here,
no,
but just the intention is to create awareness.
yes.
What are you thinking? How are you treating yourself? Are you being as compassionate with yourself as you are with others that you love?
And to make it more tangible or even just give you a little slice of a how to
Yeah.
is what Angela said about the mirror. If when you go to the bathroom and you wash your hands and you look up and there's the bathroom mirror, pause for a minute and just, you don't even have to say anything. See if you can even just smile at yourself,
Yeah.
right? And just see if, that's like, all right, that was enough, fine. If you could take it one step further, you can just go, hi, or even, I love you. What affection, whatever affection is to you, maybe you wink at yourself, whatever affection is to you, can you just give it back to yourself? It might not even need to be a word,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Could
How
be a
sometimes
feeling.
people wink, and if someone winks at you that you love, and you just catch their eye across the room and they wink at you, you just get this warm fuzzy. I mean, Angela's eyes are lighting up. You just get this warm fuzzy of like, oh, hi.
I know. Ooh, he likes me. Yeah.
Even if it's a sibling or a father, or, there are moments that, can you do it to yourself?
Yeah.
And it might even like just send Angela and me into giggles a little bit,
Yeah.
for a moment of giggles. This is where our play comes in,
Yeah.
so that we mix our radical truth with a lightness and a play.
Yeah.
And then you're going to piggyback of that in different ways of like, oh my God, you know what? When I'm in the car, I notice I get really angry or I get really judgy of other drivers. What happens if you put some music on? And then you end up singing in the car instead of just sitting there. Or if you're just, you're regurgitating something when you're driving and it's making you agitated or anxiety is arising. Do you have some classical music
Mm.
or those? I love putting the binaural binaural beats on
I
in
know
the
our
car.
beats. I love those. Yes.
Oh, good. Just get
So
them on
good.
Spotify or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes my kids don't mind, and it just continues playing. Someone's like, "Turn that off," and I'm like, "All right, it's fine. I needed it for me."
Yeah.
But
So
just,
powerful.
yeah, making awareness of how we can reprogram ourselves in small ways.
Yeah. And baby steps.
Yeah,
Baby steps. And to going back to the mirror work, if you don't believe it, trust, keep going.
yeah,
If you don't believe that you love yourself right now, it's just like anything else. It's a muscle, it's a habit, and it
yes,
will happen. But it's a matter of being consistent and doing it every day.
yes,
Such a powerful exercise. So I'll link that book, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And I'll also I'll link Binaural Beats, just so that you have the spelling and everything in the show
yes.
notes.
Thank you.
I go and do mine. I get mine off of YouTube. I have a few of my favorite ones that have like frequencies that really work for me.
Yes,
But my invitation is just to go wherever you listen to music and type in binaural beats and find something that makes you feel good when you listen to it.
and go with your instinct, because I've often gone with my instinct, and then I actually read. It's like, oh, this is for repairing DNA, Or, oh, this is for releasing trauma. How apt. It's amazing how sometimes they have visual images with the binaural beats, and either it's a color of that, it's like a kaleidoscope image, isn't it? You have
Yeah,
that.
oftentimes. Yep.
So it might be the visual that catches your eye or just the name of it, but let your higher consciousness guide you and just see what gets played. And you don't always have to get too cerebral with it and saying, well, this is what I need. Just pause and see what catches your eye.
Yeah.
Because that's a really wonderful practice, and it stops us overthinking, and it allows us to drop in and listen to our higher self as to what that is guiding us to. And when we add that layer into the practice, you'll start to trust your instincts more too.
So beautiful, Saskia. Thank you so much for offering that and for really leading this conversation and getting us talking about that today, because it's so important. And as you listeners and goddesses listening are probably starting to recognize that the world changes when we change. So thank you so much, Saskia, for such an amazing conversation. For the goddesses listening, thank you so much for being present and listening today.
Blessings to all. Thank you, Angela. Always
Thank you, Saskia.
Such a joy to collaborate with you.
So lovely to collaborate with you. And until next time, goddesses, take care. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Reclaim Your Fire podcast. If you have found value in this podcast, please share this podcast with those you care about. As you probably already know, in order for the world to change, we need to change. So spread the word by sharing this podcast or by leaving a review in iTunes. Until next time, Fire Goddess, be radiant, be fiery, and be powerfully authentic. Take care.